For your digitizer and LCD repair, this unit is actually all one piece. So if you've dropped and broken the glass, maybe the glass or the touch is unresponsive, maybe the LCD is broken or you can't see your picture anymore, you end up having to replace both pieces. You can order the parts individually, the glass by itself and the LCD by itself, but it's almost impossible to replace just one or the other. So I'd recommend, to save you a lot of headache and time and money in the long run, to just do it as one unit. Now this here, it is broken, so we're going to replace it. I'll show you how to do that here in just a second. If your glass is okay but the screen is black, you may want to check the cable, because if you've dropped it and the screen went black, it may have just come unplugged. So you'll want to check the cable first, the actual plug, just to make sure that's not the issue. And if you've checked that and it still is black or obviously broken, then you'll want to replace it. Now the other thing is you'll want to completely strip the phone of everything inside of it, because when you heat it up, you don't want to melt any of your speakers or your cables or anything. So really the last things that'll be left is your front-facing camera and the little sensor, and then typically the little microphone rubber housing for the mic. And everything else is already out of it. This cable right here, this is your navigation flex cable, which is part of this down here. And so that you can't remove. But once we remove the LCD and glass digitizer, then you will be able to get to this cable. So that's a different repair, but we'll show you how to take the glass digitizer off in this one. So just remember, strip it all down so there's nothing left in the phone, and then we'll get started. So you want to get your glove on, either your I use a batting glove. You can use any kind of glove, a gardening glove, your construction glove, whatever. Just something to protect it, because I hold the part in my hand, and as I'm heating it up, you can tell from my fingers on here that it's better to have the heat damage the glove than my fingers itself. So we'll do that, and then we'll get our heat gun. You can use a hair dryer, anything like that. You can find the heat guns usually for maybe $20-$30 at hobby shop or kind of a local hardware store, something like that. So they're pretty inexpensive, and it definitely saves some time. So we'll get started with the heat gun. I'll hold it about 6 to 8 inches away from the phone, and you want to continuously move it around. Now what you're really trying to focus on is the edges. You have the top up here, you have the top, and then the two sides, and then the very bottom. And the adhesive runs all around the edge. So you want to make sure that you heat the top and the sides and the bottom up enough to get that adhesive kind of loose enough so you can separate the LCD digitizer unit from the frame. And then also in the middle, there is on the back of the LCD, there's an adhesive strip that goes and holds onto the frame. So you just kind of want to make sure you move it all around. You don't want to keep it in one spot too long, or you will end up melting the housing itself. The frame is just plastic, and if you leave the heat on it too long, you'll melt it, and then then your parts won't go back on properly. So anyways, so we're kind of moving it around, front and back, right on the edges. I'll move it kind of sideways. Now it may take you, a couple of minutes. It may take you a little longer. Just depends. I mean, it really depends on the heat gun you're using. But usually it's a couple of minutes to maybe 5 or 6 minutes. Now, if the LCD digitizer's broken and I'm going to replace it anyways, I'll usually cheat. I'll get on the back side, and I'll show you here in a minute. I'll get on the back side and kind of slip one of my screwdrivers in through the back of the frame and separate the LCD from the housing this way. If you're trying to preserve the LCD digitizer, then you'll want to kind of separate ever so slightly in a corner and slide your pick under there. But what I'll do, since this we're actually trying to just replace it altogether, I'll get right inside of here or here, one of these spots, and just kind of get a little bit of separation. And if it breaks the LCD, that's okay because we're replacing it anyways. So you can see right here, you get a little bit of separation, and I'll get a pick and just kind of slowly work it in there. Now I've got my pick and I've got some separation. Now I can kind of, just ever so gently, and it may take some time, but really time is on your side when you're trying to take these parts off. So once you kind of get one in, you want to use your second pick and just slowly work it around the edges. And what you're wanting to do, there's, again, like I told you, the adhesive on here that's holding the glass onto the frame. So you're trying to get the adhesive either off of the glass or off of the frame. And once you get to a point you may get stuck, it doesn't hurt to just pick the heat gun up again and heat it up again. And one thing you will want to be careful of, and what I will do every time that there's a navigation cable, is I'll start at the top and work my way down to the bottom. Because what I don't want to happen is I don't want to damage the navigation cable if the nav cable is fine. Because what happens, if you start at the top here and you work your way down, then when you get down here, you'll actually be able to see the cable I'm talking about. If you start down here and you just start kind of digging in there with your pick and try to lift it up, you actually may damage that cable, and then you'll have to replace that as well. But you'll see here, once we get some separation, or enough separation, the cable I'm actually talking about. So the other thing you're going to notice, and I don't think you can see it, but that's part of it. It's the adhesive on the back of the LCD, and you can kind of see it right here. See that piece right here? That adhesive is kind of holding the LCD onto the frame. So that's something else you'll have to get separation from. Okay, so that came off on the bottom, so you can set that aside. And actually the adhesive, this is the adhesive strip I was talking about. That's basically a heat separator from the board to the LCD. So this strip right here, and you can kind of notice, you can peel it up. You just start on one side and then slowly peel. And you can peel this all the way off. But this is held on to the back of the LCD and then to the frame. So that's kind of one other thing that you'll want to be aware of. Now down here, the bottom of the glass kind of separated, and this probably will happen to you. So what you'll want to be careful of, and I'll show you right there, you can start to kind of see the corner of it, is the nav cable. You see it right there, that little corner. So that cable runs all the way under to about this side, and then from this side, the cable will run out of the back and then up in here. So that's where that cable goes to. And if you start at the bottom, you can actually tear this cable, like I said earlier, and then you'll end up having to replace it. So what you want to be careful of, especially with all this glass, is that it is broken glass and you can cut yourself. So just keep in mind that you'll want to take caution if this has happened to you. And if it's broken, you'll just want to kind of work it ever so slightly. And again, either using maybe you wear 2 gloves, maybe have eye protection on, because if you try to break it or remove the glass, you can actually end up having little pieces shoot off or break off and can hit you in the face, and it definitely doesn't feel good. So if you get to a point where it feels like you're struggling to try to get this up, you can heat it up again. Just remembering to be careful because that cable is now exposed. So you don't want to heat it up too much or you will melt that cable. Remember, it may not take a lot of heat now just because you have this glass pretty much exposed, and there's not much holding it on. So let's see here if we can't make this a little easier. Yep, okay, so that's come off, that's good. So you want to, and typically what I'll actually do this over a trash can. The only problem is I'm trying to show you on the video, so I can't do it over a trash can. But you want to do it over a trash can just to make it easier on yourself, so you're not having little pieces of glass everywhere on your table or your workstation. But I mean, this can and does happen a lot where the pieces will break off and then you're slowly having to pick through them. Now what you should be able to do, there's a little piece of adhesive on top of this cable, and if you can get that adhesive, it's almost like a tape, it looks like a tape. If you get that tape, then you could probably peel most of the broken pieces of glass off. You really don't need the adhesive on that. It's kind of there just to make sure that this navigation cable doesn't move at all, but you can apply new adhesive over it. It's going to be easier than trying to pick every little piece off individually. So okay, so there's that. And then we'll make sure that we get every single piece of glass off of this frame, because the last thing you want on the frame is any little piece of glass. What will happen is if you have any glass on there, when you put your new frame on, it can and usually will break your new LCD. So we'll kind of just clean it off like this. You can use air, you can use a can of air. I use a toothbrush. Let's see here. Get that guy off. Okay. Okay, so you want to inspect, you want to make sure that it's all clean, that there's no there's no glass left. And then the other thing you'll want to do is you will want to peel all the old adhesive off. So you peel the old adhesive off, make sure that's all nice and clean. And then I'll get the new LCD right now, and we'll prep that to put onto the board. So here's the new LCD. We're putting a new white one on. You can use black or white. The only thing you want to be careful of, and I'll show you here on the close-up, is that your revision number right here, and I don't know if you can see that revision is the same from the old one to the new one. So that's a 6.2. The old one was a 6.2. So you should be Should be okay as long as the revision number is the same. Then you shouldn't have any issues with it working or operating properly. So we'll go back to the overhead shot. And sometimes you'll be able to find the adhesives already pre-cut. If you don't have the adhesives pre-cut, the adhesives I usually recommend are the either the Incredible 2 or the HTC Evo 4G adhesive. And the reason being, I mean, they send you kind of generic normal adhesives. Well, they're good, but I tend to find that the strength of them isn't as good as the Evo 4G or the Incredible 2. So what I will do, and I'm just going to kind of demonstrate this a little bit, but I'll actually cut adhesives to fit all along the frame. So I'll cut at the top, down the side, down at the bottom, and then down on the top, or on this side to the top. Now, that's a really thin ledge that you have to get the adhesive onto. So it's good to cut a super, super thin strip all the way down, and then just kind of down here around the navigation cable, and then another really, really thin strip up along that side. And then again at the top, you want it to go, and you actually want it to go around the speaker and around the sensor and the camera. So you don't want to cover those openings at all, because if you cover it, then you obstruct the view for the camera, you obstruct the view for the light sensor, and you obstruct the hole for the speaker, and the phone may not work exactly how it should. So I'll show you here. Usually you can get the strips of adhesive. They just come in a big square. Sometimes here's another one. But you know what's nice about this is you can cut them to any size, any length, and kind of form it to however you want. So I'll cut one strip and just kind of show you what I'm talking about. So let's see here. Get some space. Okay, so if we knew that we needed a strip, let's say here up on the top until this first spot on the speaker. So what we'll do, you can kind of measure it to say, okay, I need it maybe 1/4 of an inch, and I need it in about 1.5 inches or so. So we'll go on this, we'll cut it at about 1/4 of an inch. And it's fine if you cut it over the length you need, because what you can do is actually use it, in multiple areas. So that's that. We'll actually peel it off of the backing, hopefully. And this is probably where a lot of your time is going to go. If you can pre-order the adhesive by itself, it's probably recommended just to do that. But sometimes they don't have the adhesives available for whatever phone you're trying to fix. Some of them are available, and it's not a problem. You can get those no problem, but other ones are not available at all. So we'll notice, okay, that corner's kind of rounded up there, and our adhesive squared off. So what we'll do is we get our pliers or scissors or whatever you want, and just kind of snip that corner to 45. And that kind of gives you a rounded effect, where now you can get that right up against the edge and tear that down. And then you want to lay it down until you get to the speaker, the opening. And then we'll get our scissors or our cutters again, and we'll go right to that opening and just cut it. So now we have that little spot done. And then you can run a strip up here along the very top, and then a couple, fill in a couple other spots along the edges. But what you'll want the effect of is that this whole frame, all the way around, this whole frame up here, and then down on the side, right on this little ledge, down on the bottom. And you can even go right up on top here, and then down up that whole side, and then back to the top. You want the whole frame to be covered just like this little part is, and not covering any of these openings. And once you do all that, then you can peel your adhesive off. And again, it may take you a little bit, but the stickier the better, because you do not want your LCD or digitizer coming up off of the board. Let's see here. There you go. So you'll peel all the backing off, so your whole, all the adhesive is exposed, and then you want to salvage your replacement dust cover. So the dust cover actually sits in this little spot right here. That's kind of what covers the speaker up, and helps protect your phone from getting dust all inside of it. So if you did it right, your dust cover should fit nicely in that hole. What you may need to do, instead of cutting the top adhesive, you can put that down first, and then cut a strip and overlay it so it kind of holds that little notch in place. But you want that exposed, because what's going to happen is you're going to end up lining your opening for your speaker right there. That's going to line up to lay down right on top of that. And if you've covered it up, or you've maybe you've miscut so it's not sitting flush, then you'll have problems when you go to put your LCD on. So once you get all that cut, then we'll move to the backing. You're going to want to remove all this backing. If there's any stickers or anything covering the sensor holes, right here, you peel that guy off. And then usually this whole sticker right here, this edge is the backing that holds the LCD onto the board. So you kind of start on one little corner, and you can just go around and just peel it all the way around. And you'll peel that off, and then make sure there's no other stickers or anything covering anything. Once you do that, then you can kind of get this all in place and ready to go. So I usually bend the LCD plug kind of forward, so it's easier to get in through that hole right there. So you want to make sure you get it through that hole. Let's see here. This piece just fell out. You want to make sure you get that piece in there and that it stays, because you don't want to get this all in, adhere it all down, and then you find out your dust cover's not in there and you're kind of stuck. Okay, so that's in there. And so what I'll do, I'll make sure that the LCD plug goes through the hole, and then as it goes down, then I'll line up the dust cover with the top. And before I push anything down, I'm going to make sure that it kind of looks like it lines up right, and that everything looks to be in order, because the last thing that I want to do is push it down and have it out of place, because these LCDs are so thin that any pressure can and will break them. So once you kind of get it all assessed, it's sitting perfectly how it should be, then then you can kind of push it down very gently along the edges. Don't push in the middle of the screen right there, because you'll end up snapping that LCD. But you kind of push around the edges, and then once you get everything in place, put the phone back together and test it. But that's how you fix the LCD and digitizer. Just remember that the adhesive is all the way around the edge, because if it isn't, in maybe a week, a month, 2 months down the line, you'll start to see separation, and eventually it could just completely come apart. because over time, if there is separation, you get dust and dirt inside, and that will actually weaken the adhesive. So you want to make sure that you get a strong bond around the edge, and then that'll ensure that your part will stay in place for as long as you have the phone. So anyways, remember to put it all back together, test it, and you should be good to go.